Revealed. She posed as a billionaire's wife, an incredible journey to healing beyond expectations. Sarah Johnson was no stranger to struggle. At 32, juggling 2 kids and 3 jobs felt like running a marathon without a finish line. Each day she wore a brave smile, serving diners greasy fries and coffee at the local joint, peeling the invisible weight of financial burdens off her shoulders moment by moment. Yet beneath that bright exterior, fear lurked like a shadow. What if the rent didn't get paid this month? What if their fridge healed over each day, but no food lingered? Her heart tightened at the thought of her children, Mikey and Lily, growing up in a world where hope felt out of reach. One fateful evening at the diner, as Sarah wiped down tables, she overheard whispers about a charity gala for a billionaire family known for their extravagant lifestyle. The shimmering picture painted by her fellow waitresses was intoxicating. A chance to step into a world where money was not a lament, but a life, a chance to escape. She let those whispers swirl in her mind like a roller coaster, her pulse quickening with the thought that maybe, just maybe, this was it. She could step into that life, not just for herself, but for Mikey and Lily. In a fit of wild determination, she borrowed a designer gown from a friend, heart pounding as glimmer turned into reality. The gala was an explosion of color and sound. Laughter rippled through the air, mingling with the clink of glasses filled with champagne, a dizzying cacophony that left her breathless. But as she twirled among the elite, adorned in borrowed riches, whispers became less about her beauty and more about her outsider-esque presence. She saw the dismissive glances, heard the low murmurs hushing around her like a bitter wind. Yet, amid satin and smiles, she found connection with others who seemed as fragile as she felt, each hiding a piece of their own story. Sarah clung to them like a lifeline. They were light in her dark world. Yet, a ceiling loomed overhead. Competing for the charity-esque grand prize, a grant for her struggling neighborhood, was exhilarating yet terrifying. With every tick of the clock, the stakes soared, tying her fate to the outcomes of others, all while she danced on a thin tightrope of deception. Then it happened. During a live auction at the gala, the truth cascaded into the open like water breaking through a dam. Gasps fluttered through the crowd as her secret was exposed. She felt the sting of judgment wash over her, a tide that threatened to engulf her spirit. Could she bear to face these people, now staring with shock and disdain? Her heart raced, fear clawing at her throat as she contemplated the unforgiving gaze of the elite. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Standing at that crossroads, Sarah inhaled deeply, vulnerability crashing into her like an avalanche. The road to redemption felt perilous. Yet in that gripping silence, a fire ignited within her. Should she stick to the lie that brought her here, or risk everything for authenticity? This moment meant everything. Would her plea resonate, illuminating the struggles of those like her? As she prepared to speak, she could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes staring, the uncertainty settling heavy on her heart. All that was left was to give voice to her truth. Would her brave words inspire empathy or seal her fate? As anticipation hung thick, the air pulsated with a question that tormented many. Can a single act of courage change the fate of an entire community? The silence felt like a living thing, wrapping around Sarah as she took a step forward. She could feel her heart thudding in her chest, each beat echoing the urgency of the moment. Every eye pinned on her brought a fresh wave of doubt. They weren't just looking at her. They were looking through her, through the dress, through the borrowed charm, to the real Sarah lurking beneath. She started, her voice shaky like a leaf in the wind. She cleared her throat, desperation tightening her words into sharper edges. I never intended to deceive anyone. The murmurs swirled louder, a tornado of gossip and judgment rising high. Yet she pressed on. I came here tonight out of need. I wanted to fight for my family, for my neighborhood where hope has been replaced with despair. The words poured out now, fueled by years of struggle. Each syllable drew Sarah deeper into her truth, a powerful current lifting her beyond the weight of fear. My children deserve a future. They deserve to dream beyond tomorrow. A flicker of something shifted in the crowd. Eyes narrowed, heads tilted. Some in the audience seemed to lean in. For the first time, her voice pulled them closer, bridging the chasm between their worlds. I wanted to shed light on the lives that are often swept under the rug. Families like mine fighting for every meal, every bill, just trying to survive. She felt the energy change around her, a tide softly beginning to shift. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted Clara, the matriarch of the wealthy family hosting the gala. Clara had her arms crossed, surprise flickering across her perfectly manicured face. This was a woman accustomed to power, and Sarah's raw honesty seemed to catch her off guard. Sarah reached for that uncertainty, hoping to anchor herself in it. I know I'm not supposed to be here. But look around. There are so many of us who are struggling, fighting silently. Shouldn't we be heard? From somewhere in the back, a voice piped up, hesitating at first, then growing bolder. You're right. It wasn't Sarah's voice, but somehow it became her lifeline. It was Mia, another well-dressed stranger who agreed, raising her hand in solidarity. My charity works with families just like yours. I want to help. A collective gasp filled the room. For so long, Sarah had felt like a lone ship adrift in a stormy sea. But now, it felt as though other ships were beginning to navigate closer. The hope hung heavy in the air, waiting for the right push, the spark to set it ablaze. As people began to murmur amongst themselves, Sarah's heart swelled with something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Hope. Yes, hope. A powerful emotion, brewing and ready to overflow. But it wasn't finished yet. Just as the tide began to pull her in a new direction, the lights dimmed momentarily, and Sarah felt a chill. A spotlight swung toward a figure stepping onto the stage. It was the billionaire himself, a presence commanding attention. His gaze locked on Sarah. Confusion mingled with something else. Could it be curiosity? The crowd hushed again, all eyes were on him. Sarah swallowed hard as she held her breath, anticipating what he might say. Would he condemn her? Would he offer his support? Time seemed suspended in that moment, and one thought itched at her mind. Had she truly sparked something that could change not just her fate but the fate of her community? But just before he could speak, the atmosphere in the room shifted again, leaving Sarah with a feeling she couldn't quite shake off. What was about to unfold could rewrite everything. Tonight is not just about showcasing wealth, he began, an undercurrent of intensity in his voice. Tonight is about uncovering what truly matters. What would he reveal? What was his connection to her story? The room became a void, waiting for the next moment, aching for resolution. His voice carried authority, resonating through the silence. It's about understanding the privilege we often take for granted. He paused, eyes scanning the crowd, lingering on Sarah as he continued. It's easy to forget those who are struggling when we are wrapped in comfort. A hush fell over the room. Even Clara seemed to unfold her arms, leaning slightly forward, as though the tide of the moment had washed over her too. The billionaire took a breath, filling the space with anticipation. I grew up not far from a community like Sarah's. My family fought to make ends meet. I remember the shame, the yearning for something better. I remember faces just like hers, he said, nodding toward Sarah. But I also remember the courage it took to stand up and speak out. His admission hung in the air, stirring something primal in the crowd. Sarah felt the warmth of shared experience. Woven into his words was an unspoken bond, a bridge between their lives. As he spoke, uncertainty began to melt away, replaced by a collective air of possibility. You might not know me, he said, his voice filled with conviction, but I want you all to know something important. Change starts here, right in this room. Sarah's eyes widened. Was he really putting his fortune on the line for those who felt forgotten? She held her breath, driven by the glimmer of hope sparking inside her. What if he revealed something that could uplift and support so many families? I've decided, he continued, the words resonating with power, to establish a foundation. One dedicated to fostering initiatives that support families struggling to stay afloat like Sarah's. Gasps of shock echoed around the room. Sarah could hardly process it. This wasn't just talk. This was action. We need to invest in education, housing, and health services, he said firmly. But I can't do this alone. I need your help, your voices, he gestured around the room, to keep this conversation going. From the back of the crowd, Mia shouted, count me in. I'll rally my team. The surge of dialogue ignited like a wildfire. People began discussing ideas, offering their resources. The atmosphere buzzed with electric energy, a force of collective determination. Sarah felt it wash over her, electrifying every fiber of her being. She had stepped into the darkness, and now with these voices joining hers, a path forward was illuminated. Then, the billionaire's gaze met hers again, holding her captive. Sarah, you were brave to stand up and speak your truth tonight. We need more voices like yours. A swell of pride surged within her. For the first time she felt seen, not just as a survivor but as a leader, someone whose journey mattered. What about the kids? Someone shouted from the front, urgency ringing in their voice. They're the forgotten ones. Yes. Sarah jumped in, her heart quickening. They need opportunities. They need to feel hopeful. A chorus of agreement rose, sweeping through the crowd, as ideas bounced back and forth. Yet, amid the passion, an unsettling thought gnawed at her: the billionaire could change lives. But what if it all fell apart tomorrow? The relinquishing of control over her fate felt terrifying. What if the foundation didn't succeed? What if this moment was just another fleeting illusion of hope? Before she could spiral into doubt, she reminded herself that people were rallying behind her. They weren't just echoes of her past struggles. They were companions on this uncertain journey forward. The billionaire cleared his throat, drawing attention again. Let us plan a series of community engagements where we can collect stories and needs. This can be the first step in creating real change. As cheers erupted, Sarah felt the walls around her heart begin to crumble. Maybe this time she wouldn't have to wait for someone else to make a difference. The night wasn't over yet. The billionaire stepped away to welcome more contributions, the audience enveloped in a vivid dance of emotion and hope. But just as Sarah began to breathe in the culmination of uniting voices, a quick glance toward the exit revealed Clara. Her expression unreadable. What did she think of the shift, the foundation? Was her apprehension about to boil over into something dangerous? With every inch of hope tightening inside her, Sarah knew that while they might be on the path toward change, unforeseen challenges loomed just ahead. Would everyone stand together as they marched into that uncertain future? Or would old fears resurface? With this thought hanging in the air, Sarah took a deep breath, aware that this was just the beginning of a journey she couldn't yet foresee. Sarah could feel the pulse of the room around her, the threads of excitement weaving tighter together. She stepped forward, emboldened by the electric atmosphere. What if we created a mentorship program? Her voice trembled slightly but rang with conviction. Imagine connecting those who have walked this path before with the kids now facing it. They can share real-life experiences, help them navigate their futures. Murmurs of approval swept through the audience. The billionaire nodded, his expression encouraging. That's powerful, Sarah. Mentorship can change lives. With each new idea put forth, Sarah noticed Clara's stiff posture across the room. The initial weariness in her face was replaced by tension. Had she really expected everyone to just uproot their lives for what seemed like a distant dream? I wouldn't want to disrupt any plans, but are we prepared for the doubts? Clara's voice cut through the jubilant chatter, her tone clipped. Change requires more than just good intentions. What happens when we hit our first wall? The excitement dimmed momentarily. Why did Clara have to sound so pessimistic? Yet Sarah understood the truth behind her questions. Not everyone felt the same spark of hope. She took a calming breath, forcing her mind to try and balance Clara's skepticism with the palpable momentum building in the room. Every journey has challenges, Sarah replied earnestly, but together we can turn doubts into strength. If we face obstacles as a united front, we can overcome anything. Those kids need us to believe in them. A flicker of something softened Clara's gaze, but doubt still clung to her expression. Perhaps a part of her yearned for change but feared the unknown that came with it. People have trusted me, Sarah continued. I was once the kid struggling to be heard. I also carried a ton of fear. Yet there was always a light somewhere, even through the darkest times. If our stories connect, they will create the very hope we desire. The billionaire beamed, clearly impressed with Sarah's stamina. That's why we need mentors, he added, igniting applause from the crowd. Let us start these programs on a trial basis. See what resonates and adapt as we go. Emboldened by the support and the billionaire's authority, Sarah returned to where the energy surged. We need to plan outreach events. We can engage the community, listen to their needs. How broad a net can we cast? Ideas erupted, people taking turns proposing innovative plans, after-school programs, workshops on skills, even community gardens to teach self-sustainability. A feeling of unity so stark and real, wrapped around them all like a warm hug. But just as inspiration filled her heart, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother. They canceled the food bank. Can you help us this week? We're barely getting by. Her stomach dropped, feeling the familiar weight of obligation and guilt. As the collective fire around her blazed, an icy chill crept in. Was this newfound hope hers alone, or did she still have to face the stark realities of her own life? She quickly glanced toward Clara and saw the twitch of concern in her brow, a silent conversation passing between them. It was as if Clara could sense Sarah's burdens, unspoken but heavy. Resolving to stay focused, Sarah took another deep breath. Let us also address food insecurity, she proposed, her voice steadying. We can form partnerships with local farms. Grocery stores offer events that bring awareness to these issues. Acceptance and understanding rippled through the room. Clara softened, finally nodding. Perhaps she hadn't given enough credit to how change began on the local level. But would small changes really be enough in the face of Sarah's own daily struggles? Could she truly be the change she wanted to see? As the discussion surged forward, a nagging doubt emerged from the pit of her stomach. Was it selfish to aspire for change while her family faced overwhelming hardships? The stakes felt heavier now. The journey was no longer just about transforming the lives of others. It was about getting herself and her family through this storm, with the crowd rallying energy all around her. Sarah wrestled with the weight of expectation. Could someone standing in the light truly lift those still caught by darkness? As the momentum built, she steeled herself for the challenges that lay ahead, realizing that each step forward might also bring her closer to a truth she was terrified to confront. The billionaire grabbed her shoulder, grounding her attention back. Let us keep this moving. We're in this together. But as the roar of the crowd returned, Sarah felt the pull of her dual existence tugging at her heart. What would it take to balance hope, leadership, and the reality that loomed at home? With one final question rising in her mind, she knew the answers were just beginning to slip through her fingers as the night wore on. Would forging ahead toward a brighter future mean leaving someone or something behind? Sarah's heart raced as she stood in the midst of the vibrant crowd, buzzing with ideas. The cheers and applause faded into a dull roar, drowned by the turmoil in her mind. The message from her mother echoed in her thoughts, a constant reminder that while she cast a net for change, her own family was adrift. She caught Clara's gaze once again, now pleading and with the weight of understanding. Clara was still there, tethered to Sarah by the flicker of shared resolve, but the tension in her shoulders hinted that the discussion about mentorship wasn't just theoretical for her anymore. It was personal, as was Sarah's dilemma. Are you okay? Clara asked softly, almost lost among the jubilant voices. Sarah managed a smile, but it felt forced. I'm just balancing a lot right now. Clara nodded knowingly, looking around the room. It was filled with creative energy, intent on making a change, but Sarah's messiness loomed like a shadow behind her. She couldn't shake the truth. Her burden was both emotional and logistical. She was fighting two battles, one for the community and another for her family. Before Clara could respond, the billionaire clapped his hands to regain attention. All right, team, we have a lot to do. Let's break into smaller groups to tackle specifics. Sarah felt a surge of excitement. This was it. But before she could jump in, a familiar knot tightened in her stomach. How could she give her all when parts of her world were crumbling? Yet there was a chance for something greater here. Clara, she said, urgency creeping into her voice, can we work together on the food insecurity issue? Maybe we can gather resources or create a donation campaign. Clara hesitated, and the pause felt like a chasm of doubt. Then she replied, of course, but we need to set realistic goals. This is ambitious. Sarah's optimism clashed with Clara's practicality, but they made a good balance. Even though Clara's hesitations felt like chains sometimes, they could also ground her and offer clarity. Let's use that to push forward, Sarah encouraged, her spirit reigniting. The groups dispersed, enthusiasm bubbling over as title after title was discussed over names for the mentorship program, the food drive, and even a community festival. But amidst this burgeoning hope, Sarah's phone buzzed again. This time a picture of her mother and siblings, their faces dimmed by shadows of worry and hunger. In response, her hands began to shake slightly, her heart racing. What if she failed at both fronts? Could she help kids feel empowered while her family struggled? She excused herself from the group circle and stepped away momentarily into the hushed side of the room. The walls felt like they were closing in. Why did the universe demand so much? Did every step forward for others come at the price of her own struggles? Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself of who she was trying to be. It wasn't just for her family, or just for the kids, it was for everyone who felt lost, abandoned, or afraid. But how to carry that responsibility weighed heavy on her heart, almost unbearable. When she returned, Clara approached her with a concerned expression, tapping into their unspoken connection. I know things are tough. You're not alone in this. Thanks, Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. She paused, searching for words that felt right. I want to be the change, you know? But I also want to fix my world. Clara nodded, her gaze firm. Maybe it's not about fixing everything alone. Maybe it's about building a community, a real network. One where we all lift each other up, your family included. Her words rang with a powerful truth. As ideas flowed in and out of the discussions around them, a new narrative began to form in Sarah's mind. What if the community Sarah built for the others could also help her marred world? Suddenly, a spark of realization struck her. There was a bridge to be built, not just for the kids, but for families like hers. A vision of connection flashed through her. It didn't have to be one or the other. But just as plans began to crystallize, a sudden interruption broke through the discussions. A loud crash echoed from the back of the room, followed by a cacophony of startled gasps. Sarah's heart leaped to her throat. What now? Determined to hold on to the fragile hope she had just grasped, Sarah turned towards the chaos. What was at stake now? Everything was suddenly uncertain. The chaos surged through the room like an electric current. People turned, faces painted with shock, whispers bouncing back and forth. Sarah strained to see through the thinning crowd. Was it a broken vase? A spilled drink? The tension in her chest tightened, making it hard to breathe. Then, she spotted a woman standing by a toppled table, papers scattered like lost thoughts around her, and her flushed face suggested embarrassment mixed with something more serious. Sarah's instinct pulled her forward. Clara was already weaving through the crowd, worry etched across her face. As they reached the scene, the woman was frantically picking up the papers, her hands trembling. I'm so sorry, she murmured, glancing up at Sarah and Clara. I didn't mean to disrupt. I just wanted to share my thoughts. Hey, it's okay, take your time, Clara said gently, kneeling beside her as they gathered the papers. Sarah joined, her heart softening. Here was another person, another story threaded into the tapestry of their mission. As I was saying, the woman continued, her voice gaining strength, I've been struggling with affording food for my kids. I heard about this initiative and felt compelled to come. But when I stood up to share my experience, I just panicked. Listening, Sarah's heart sank. She recognized the weight of desperation in the woman's eyes. It mirrored her own fears. This was the reality she was trying so hard to address. That families were slipping through the cracks like hers. Your voice matters, Sarah said, meeting her gaze. We're trying to build something here for folks just like you. Why don't you share your story? It could help us find a better way to reach others. The woman hesitated, her face a mix of uncertainty and relief. I don't know if anyone would care what I have to say. Of course they will, Clara encouraged. Every single voice is important, especially yours. Just take a deep breath. Sarah felt a flicker of determination. Wasn't that what she was fighting for? To uplift the voices that felt insignificant? Gathering herself, the woman stood, still shaky but resolved. Okay, I'll try. With a deep breath, she began to share her experience, her struggles with food costs, her children's needs, the pressure of finding a stable job when everything felt unpredictable. With each word, she cast a light on the shadows hiding behind her initial hesitation. The audience was silent, captivated by the raw honesty pulsing through the air as the woman spoke. Sarah felt a swell of hope grow inside her. Perhaps this was a glimpse of what they could accomplish. The intimacy of shared experiences igniting the fire needed for change. But just as the gathering began to rally around her words, a loud voice cut through the atmosphere. What about the billion-dollar solutions? Why are we focused on this? It was one of the men who had come to pitch ideas earlier. His skepticism hung thick, dampening the rising energy in the room. Because it's not all about the money, Sarah shot back, the urgency in her voice drowning out the doubts creeping back into her mind. It's about people. We need to connect. We need real solutions for real lives. The voices grew louder, a mix of support and dissent. Clara stood by her side, eyes blazing with conviction. We should challenge ourselves to find solutions that meet families where they are. The tension bubbled over like a boiling pot. Amidst the chaos, Sarah could feel the ground shifting beneath her. But would they unite, or would they fracture under pressure? Then in the thick of it all, Sarah's phone buzzed again. When she looked down, the familiar photo from before flashed on the screen, a glimpse of her family, faces pale and weary. The gravity of her worlds collided within her. How could she drive this community forward while shadows loomed behind her? With her heart racing, she faced the growing discord. Aware a decision loomed, a choice that held the potential to alter everything. She took a step forward, feeling the weight of countless eyes on her. Would she be ready to lead, to break through the barrier of uncertainty? With courage she didn't know she possessed, Sarah opened her mouth to speak. What came next could reshape her journey forever. Taking a deep breath, Sarah steadied herself and stepped into the center of the room. The chatter diminished. All eyes turned to her, filled with curiosity. She felt the heat of their gaze, a mix of hope and skepticism. It sent a shiver down her spine, but she refused to waver. I know it's easy to think we need big, fancy answers to solve huge problems, she began, her voice steady but heart-racing. But today I've realized that it's about the people standing beside us, the stories hiding behind closed doors. She nodded toward the woman who had just shared, a spark of bravery lighting up the room. Look, she continued, the truth is we all carry our burdens. Life isn't simple, and it's not about having a billion-dollar idea. This isn't about money. It's about connection. It's about stories like yours, she said, pointing to the woman, and mine and everyone here. Together we make up the pulse of our community. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sarah clenched her fists, feeling the power of shared experience sending energy through the air. I felt lost too. I've struggled to find enough food for my kids. I've worried every day about paying bills while juggling a job that doesn't pay enough. I also know what it's like to feel that no one is listening. But if we can create a space where we can share our experiences freely, where we support one another, maybe we can find real solutions. The atmosphere thickened with emotion. She could see tears in some eyes, nods of understanding in others. Clara's supportive gaze fueled her resolve. Together we can craft solutions that start right here, in this community. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our families. Cheers erupted, voices speaking out encouragement as people began standing up to share their own stories. Each one shared fears about rent, healthcare, success, and some shared their small victories. The collective energy was overwhelming. It was a wave of hope crashing against despair as Sarah joined in. The conversations bounced from one person to another, each story woven tighter into the fabric of unity. She felt like she was on the edge of something powerful, and yet the tendrils of her own fears still crept into her mind. However, even as voices rose in solidarity, doubt wrestled within her. She couldn't shake the feeling of unease planted by the photograph on her phone. The faces of her family loomed large, reminding her of what was on the line. The pressure of their needs pressed against her heart, a silent echo urging her to divert her focus back home. Are we willing to keep this momentum going? To reach out to every family that needs support? Clara's voice brought Sarah back, grounding her in that moment. To turn this gathering into a movement? Yes, Sarah yelled, fueled by urgency and passion. We can create resources, workshops, whatever it takes. We can't stop until every person's voice is heard and valued. Together we can build a lifeline. The crowd erupted in applause, energy surging once again. But amidst the cheers, a small voice from the back spoke out. But what happens when the money runs out? Sarah's heart sank. The question hung heavily, rippling through the optimism. The silence that followed was deafening. How could they fund a movement when everything felt so fragile? Gazing out at the crowd, she felt tremors of doubt resurface. What was the answer? Could they sustain this energy? As the conversation circled back to funding and logistics, Sarah's resolve began to waver. That same anxiety that had haunted her reared its head, demanding attention. Was she the right person to lead? Could she truly make a difference in the face of such uncertainty? And as she stood there in the spotlight, lost inside her swirling thoughts, one thing became clear. She needed to find a way to balance her fight for the community while safeguarding her family back home. But how? She took another deep breath, ready to confront the reality that awaited her. Let us not focus solely on what we lack, she started again, but this time the words caught in her throat. In that moment, everything she thought she wanted, everything she believed was at stake, hung precariously in the balance. What could she do now? Would she choose to stand for the community or retreat to protect her own heart? Waiting for her decision felt like an eternity. Would they move forward together? Or would she crumble beneath the weight of it all? The crowd was thick with uncertainty, the air charged with anticipation. Sarah felt the weight of 100 pairs of eyes on her, each one a mirror reflecting her own doubts and fears. What was she doing? The energy that had surged through the room moments before seemed to wane in the face of reality. She could feel her heart racing, not from excitement, but from a fear that threatened to paralyze her. Okay, she mumbled, half to herself, half to the crowd. We may not have all the answers now, but that's okay. It's a start, right? Her voice trembled slightly, fighting to rise above whispers echoing through the room. Was she really doing any good? A figure rose from the back, an elderly man, frail yet strong. Young lady, he said, his voice steady and clear. You've opened something in us, but we need a solid plan. We can't just talk about problems without potential solutions. His words resonated, striking deeply within Sarah's chest. She could picture her father, who had always insisted on practicality in life's darkest moments. Instinctively, she stepped forward, letting his words mingle with her swirling mind. You're right, she admitted. Each story we've shared can be a piece of that plan. We can carry these experiences into something tangible. More voices rose, each one echoing support yet laden with questions. Could they really create something meaningful from these stories? Could hope turn into actionable steps? Sarah's breath quickened as excited chatter filled the room once more. They were still willing to believe. But how do we fund it? Someone shouted from the corner, a sharp reminder of the reality that loomed large. And there it was again, the relentless specter of doubt. She could feel its icy fingers creeping back in. What did they really have to offer? Would their passion alone be enough? She quickly glanced at Clara, who nodded encouragingly. Sarah's heart swelled, even as doubt threatened to drag her down. Listen, she began, forcing confidence into her tone. What if we pooled our resources together? Instead of focusing on what we don't have, let us think about what we can share. Skills, space, knowledge. The energy in the room shifted again, hope sparking like a flame against the encroaching dark. That very moment ignited an idea, a path they could take together. We can start a community initiative. She blurted out, the words spilling uncontrollably. Workshops for skill sharing. A food pantry created by us for us. Her friends, neighbors, and even strangers exchanged glances filled with renewed energy. Hands shot up in the air, volunteers eager to contribute their time and talents. Sarah felt the pulse of the community return to life, each heartbeat echoing a powerful affirmation of shared purpose. What if we hold a fundraiser? A community fair where we can showcase our talents and raise funds? Another voice suggested. The room erupted once more, a sea of enthusiasm washing over her. Yes, this energy was infectious, electric. The thought of laughter, of families coming together, made her heart soar. But as voices blended together, a flash of her family's faces crossed her mind. She had failed to call home that day. Did they understand? Did they even know where she was? Panic rose, threatening to counter the warmth igniting in the room. Clara must have sensed her hesitation. Sarah, she said softly, drawing her back into the moment. This is just the beginning. You made them believe. What's holding you back? The anxiety coiled within her, squeezing tighter. She wanted to be both advocate for her community and a good mother. Could she really do both? Just when Sarah thought she was about to crumble, a spark of resolve ignited within all the stories, the people, the connections. If I can build this platform for us, I can build one for my family too. They're part of this journey, she declared. As the crowd cheered, embracing the shared vision, Sarah felt a new clarity settle within her. Yes, the trail ahead might be rocky, but together, they could help one another rise. I'm in, she shouted, igniting their collective spirit. But then it hit her, the truth lingering unspoken. What would happen if the effort faltered? Would the community still band together if the funding ran out? The question loomed like a shadow, a storm threatening the warm light they had just created together. Seeking answers would be the next challenge, and she had to decide whether to face the reality head-on. Together we will rise or fall, she shouted, clinging to the hope that swirled in the air. But as the room echoed with voices in agreement, she couldn't shake the chilling whisper in her heart. Would they be able to endure the storm ahead? As anticipation pulsed in the air, the question remained, waiting for an answer. The energy in the room was electric, but shadows lurked in Sarah's mind. She could feel her confidence waver, even as the crowd erupted in cheers. Voices mingled, rising and falling like the tide, but beneath it all, a nagging thought gnawed at her. What if this all fell apart? Clara leaned in closer, her eyes friendly yet insistent. Sarah, we need a leader. You're already inspiring everyone. Embrace that. Sarah's heart raced at the encouragement. But a knot tightened in her stomach. What if I fail them? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Failure is just another step towards success, Clara replied, her tone unwavering. But doing nothing, that's the real failure. The word struck Sarah like a lightning bolt. She inhaled sharply as if awakening from a dream. Amid the crowd's echo, she saw the faces of men and women who had gathered there, ready to take risks alongside her. Children bouncing with glee, parents nodding with hope she couldn't let them down. They were all searching for something more, something better. Okay, let us do this, she shouted, more to reassure herself than anyone else. Another wave of excitement washed over her, and plans began to crystallize in her mind. Let us form a committee. We can delegate tasks, share ideas and expand our reach. Hands shot into the air again, faces alight with determination. This was more than just words. This was a movement. But then she pictured her family again. The reality of their lives weighed heavily on her heart. They needed her at home just as much, if not more. Adrenaline surged through her as she half listened to excited discussions around her. Could she be all things to all people? Are we going to meet weekly? Someone asked, breaking into her thoughts. Yes, weekly meetings to keep track of our progress, Sarah replied, forcing her words to sound confident. Her mind raced as she mentally tallied the hours she would need to give time she might lose with her children. Should we find a venue? I know a local church that might help us. Another voice chimed in. Yes, let us do that, Sarah called back, but uncertainty clouded her mind. These plans needed to include her family. Why hadn't she thought of that before? As the group brainstormed ideas for the community fair games, food stalls, performances, Sarah's pulse quickened. The reality of what they could create together blossomed in her mind. Each suggestion seemed to weave a stronger thread in a tapestry that was becoming their community's fabric. Yet, she couldn't shake the dread that accompanied this burgeoning excitement. Okay, now we need someone to head up logistics, organize the venue, and get our permits, Clara announced. I can do it. A steady voice rose from the front. It belonged to a woman named Maya, whom Sarah had met months ago. I used to work in events. I can draft a timeline and manage funds. A ripple of applause filled the room. The sense of unity flourished as each person bounced ideas off one another, quickly finding their roles. Sarah felt a swell of pride. They were coming together against doubts, against fears, even against the storm she dreaded lingering behind them. But just as the momentum reached its peak, her phone buzzed in her pocket, a sharp reminder of her other life, her family. Heart thundering, she retrieved it. An email notification from her mother appeared on the screen. We need to talk. It's about the kids. An echo of dread gripped Sarah's heart. The joyful noise around her faded to a distant hum, concern suddenly colliding with unresolved obligations. She could no longer ignore the growing tension that twisted in her chest. What did that message mean? How could she focus now on building a community when her home life was in disarray? Sarah. Clara's voice pierced through her thoughts as the crowd continued to build energy. What now? A moment of hesitation enveloped her. She faced a decision, one that could change everything. Let us make this happen, she shouted into the chaos, wrestling with her own conflict. But with her family in the background, could she truly commit her heart to this community? A heavy silence fell over her soul. The question now loomed larger than ever. How would she balance both worlds? As determination waged war against fear inside her, this new door of opportunity unfolded. But would she walk through it into the storm waiting back home? The answer hung like final words in the air, uncertain yet filled with possibility. Sarah stood at the crossroads, her heart caught between two worlds, both demanding her attention. Around her the vibrant scene of hope swirled. New ideas bounced like laughter between friends gathered in a circle of change. Yet, deep within her heart, the weight of her family's struggles loomed like a gray cloud, threatening to cast a shadow over everything. "Sarah!" Clara shouted, her voice breaking through the tumult of voices. "What is holding you back?" In that moment everything coalesced. Her past, her dreams for the future, and the sharp pang of her family's urgency collided. She looked at Clara, whose encouraging gaze seemed to hold the entire room as hope. For a heartbeat, Sarah felt the power to drop her own burdens, to draw strength from the community around her and push forward. Not just for herself but for her kids too. "You're right," she exclaimed, her voice bursting with newfound clarity. "I can be a voice for my family and our community." As the crowd cheered, Sarah felt the spark of realization alive in her soul. Yes, she could help change the world, but she also needed to empower her own family. What if this initiative became more than just a lifeline for others? What if it became a bridge, a way to pull her family closer and reinforce their bond during storms? "Let us do this," she shouted over the rising cacophony. "We'll create a community fair not just for resources but for connection. A safe space where families can meet, share, and support one another, my family included." Gasps of surprise rippled through the crowd. They exchanged glances, their expressions morphing as if they were just beginning to grasp the gravity of her vision. "Yes," Clara echoed, her excitement palpable. "A fair that fosters mentorship and community support for all families, including those who strive daily to get by." The applause met Sarah like a warm embrace. Fresh ideas flooded the room after her declaration, excitement crackling through the air like electricity. They discussed not just logistics but the heart of the event, the stories that would be woven into it. "Let us have a meal together," one voice chimed in eagerly. "A potluck where everyone brings a dish. We can celebrate our different cultures and backgrounds." Sarah felt emotions swell within her. The food, the stories, the laughter, they could all work in harmony. She could envision her children laughing among kids from their neighborhood, feeling included and empowered. But then, like a wave crashing against her newfound hope, the reminder of her family's struggles pulled at her heart. "What if my kids don't get to be a part of this?" she worried inwardly. "What if I can't juggle it all?" "Sarah," Clara said gently, sensing her unease, "this fair could be the lifeline for your family too. You're not just creating opportunities for others, you're building a future for your kids as well." Clara's words resonated within her, reshaping her fear into something tangible. Rather than a burden, she could see their struggles as a powerful motivation. She had the chance to create something that unified families, the very thing she had always wished for since the first day she felt fear of their uncertain future. As the discussions unfolded around her, energy fired up by each idea, Sarah felt a jolt of courage. She stepped to the front, arms outstretched. "Together we can transform this vision into action. I want to share our stories, mine and my family's, so that we can all own this movement. I'm asking you to come together with me, to give voice to those who haven't felt heard." The room erupted into cheers, resonating with a communal spirit stronger than mere words. The connection layered deeper as they brainstormed ideas: fundraisers, workshops, a food pantry that operated year-round. They weren't just lifting each other. They were forging bonds of understanding and hope. Then someone called back, "But what happens when the money runs out?" It was the uncomfortable question that hung in the air like a dark cloud, but Sarah felt resilience rising within her. "Let us build partnerships," she exclaimed, "with local farmers, businesses, whatever we need to ensure sustainability. We can do this." Voices of approval surged like a tidal wave, and for the first time doubt receded. Families expressed their desire to participate, provide support, and be present. As the energy swirled, Sarah's phone buzzed again. An anxiety-driven message from her mother. But this time the weight didn't crush her spirit. Instead, she smiled at Clara and the others as she hit ignore for now. This is just the beginning, Sarah spoke passionately. We'll build a program together to create mentorship, share experiences, initiate workshops. And as for my family, they will be part of this growth. Laughter erupted and hands reached for one another, enacting tangible promises of change. It wasn't about fixed solutions or an instantaneous miracle. It was about the journey ahead, claiming their space, weaving together life into the community quilt. Through thick and thin, Sarah realized she could strive for both dreams, helping other families while fiercely protecting and nurturing her own. Foundations could be built, lives transformed, and hope nurtured for generations to come. As the night continued on, ideas blossomed like petals unfurling in sunlight. Ulterior fears softened beneath the collective spirit of action and change. The community gained momentum, a family seeking truth, uncovering stories that could change lives. As the crowd buzzed with energy, Sarah radiated warmth, heart open to embrace all possibilities. It was time. A turning point not just for herself but for everyone together, as she charged forward into a bright future forged from unity, connection, and shared stories. And at that moment, Sarah knew she had not just taken the first step toward healing for herself and her family. She had ignited a movement that could reshape their entire lives. Now, if you felt inspired by Sarah's incredible journey and the power of community, you need to subscribe now to the channel. This is the moment to show your support and not miss out on exclusive stories that uplift us all. Don't wait not even one more second, leave a like. It feeds the algorithm and helps spread hope. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending, because we want to hear from you. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation together. We can make a difference.